hello, and welcome to Stash Chat. It's so great to have so many of you joining us live already. You're all very punctual today. So thanks to everyone who's already popped into the chat to say hi. So hello, Natalie, Vicky, Mary, Jackie and Margaret. And Kerry, thank you all for joining. It's so great to have you here. If you haven't said hi in the chat yet, do pop in because I can't see who's watching unless you say hi in the chat. And also do use the chat to ask questions as our conversation goes on. Just in case anyone is joining for the first ever time, I thought I'd do a quick introduction. So hello, my name is Yvette, and I am the co-founder of the Stash Hub app, which I have developed with my husband to help people organize their stashes. So that is what we're here to talk about today, some amazing sewing stashes. So this is my show Stash Chats, where each week I talk to a different amazing member of the sewing community and I ask them about their sewing journey and their sewing stash, and we get a little peek into what they've got in their collection. So it's really, really exciting and it's different every week. So do check out our YouTube channel if you want to see some conversations with other people. Just a quick bit of Stash Hub notices. If we've recently discovered there's an issue with magic input, so it might not be working for every website, but Dog's working on it right now, so hopefully it will be fixed for your uploading sessions at the weekend. So that is all of our news. So let's crack on with the episode, get talking stashes. Oh, thank you, Deb, for the congratulations on 1,000 subs. If you're following me on Instagram, you'll know that I really messed this up the other week because I was like, oh, we're like 4 followers away from 1,000 subs, but it turned out I misread the number and we were actually like 54 followers away. So yeah, that's really exciting that we've made it to 1,000. So yeah, thank you everyone for being around. But yeah, anyway, today I'm talking to Lisa, who is Tricky Pockets on Instagram, and she's joining us all the way from Australia today. So this is our first Australian guest, which is really exciting. And basically I asked Lisa to be on the show because she always tags Stash Hub in everything that she makes, and every time I see it I'm like, wow, that's the most incredible fabric, but in everything, and she makes so much. So I really just wanted to hear more about her sewing journey, where she gets all of her incredible fabric, and have a peek into her stash. So let's get Lisa on, and do ask your questions in the chat as well. So hello, Lisa. Welcome to Chat.
Good morning, and obviously good evening for everyone else in Australia. Thank you so much for having me.
It's really exciting to have you on. I can see you're already wrapping the amazing colourful fabrics, which I feel like is your signature.
Yeah, it distracts people and just, blinds them. But no, I love it. I thought I'd better wear one of my favorite outfits for today.
We've already got some love on your dress. Natalie says that dress is gorgeous.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I can't take the credit, right? I mean, I sewed it, obviously, but it's the designers that we have in Australia. And in fact, I'm wearing a dress by Deb McNaughton, and she was, I'm diving right ahead, right? But she was the first like colorful fabric pattern designer that I don't surface pattern designer that I encountered, and I just went, and it was like this whole new world just opened up, and I've been living it and loving it ever since.
It's amazing. Yeah, so you mentioned about all the amazing designers in Australia, and that's definitely something that I notice on Instagram as well, that lots of Australian makers have the most incredible prints and fabrics. Do you think that's reflected in like Australian high street fashion as well, that it's more colourful or more just reserved for the sewists?
Do you know, it's interesting. Like, we have a couple of brands that definitely have that really irreverent, colorful, bright fabrics, but I guess our high streets look so similar to US and UK high streets as well, that I think one of the reasons I really started sewing was the more I wanted to wear bright colors, the less shops I had access to, because it was gray and beige, and I was like, oh. So I was finding myself more narrowed into what I could purchase. And so you turn to fabrics and it is a literal explosion of color. Like it is, yeah, I don't know what it is. I think it's something to do with the weather that we have. I find there's a lot of really amazing designers based in Queensland, because obviously the sun shines all the time. But just anywhere in Australia, I think we just have this really fun and creative spirit that lends itself to the translation onto fabric of really fun designs.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've definitely got fabric envy already, and we haven't even seen anything in your stash yet.
And
So
if you can get a little my screen is mirrored. I don't know which way to turn, but yeah, there I have got my wheelie chair for that reason, so that you can just be like, oh, look what I've got. So
it looks so
yeah.
neat as well. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of organization. It helps me to be creative when I can see everything really clearly. But there's so much of it that it can be really hard to make a decision sometimes.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Oh yeah. So Natalie says, "Oh, it's so organized. Have you got any tips for organizing?"
Um, so okay, I got it out. I'll show you. I came prepared. So I use these comic backing boards because obviously fabric comes in multiple different widths, and it used to really frustrate me when my fabric was all folded at different widths. And so these comic backing boards, a good friend of mine, Kath from You Can Sew, she used them, and I was like, oh, this seems like a really great idea. And you can just buy them on Amazon. They're really cheap, and you get the comic boards because there's something in that doesn't impact the fabric. And so then I just fold everything all nicely around it, and then it just makes it look like it's really beautiful and neat, and yet it's all tricks.
Magical.
It's all an illusion.
Yeah, I love using the comic book boards as well. It was like one of those ideas that you sort of see in like reels and stuff, and you're like, yeah, okay, okay. And then when you actually try it, you're like, this is a game changer. Like, I can actually
Yeah.
pull the fabric out and put it back where it was without the wall getting screwed up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea. I think the hardest thing, honestly, like to go back to Natalie's question about organization as well, is you've just got to do it. Like it sucks so much when you're deep in the like when you're just starting to get organized and you get halfway through and then it's all too hard and you just want to kind of just pack it all in. You just keep going. And I know that just sounds really easy and flippant, but because once it's done, you have the foundation there. And then the only problem is when you buy too much fabric and say you run out of space in the section for your yellows. And then it's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? But outside of that, it does when you create that initial structure, it makes things so much easier going forward. You just have to commit to maintaining it.
Yeah, I think it is much easier to maintain like once it's already in place, but it's like definitely one of those situations where it gets worse before it gets better, and you're
Yes.
just mid chaos, like, why have I done this?
Oh, I have been that person in the room with like just fabric everywhere, and you're like, I'm just gonna close the door, just and I'm just gonna walk away because I can't do it. I can't do it. But you have to. You just have to do it. I like to keep things like I group them. So everything back here is just my wovens, and they're the pretty wovens. I have all of the really pretty stuff. But then behind me, if I'm pointing in the right direction, the row down there is all my knit fabrics, also color coordinated, but that's all knits. And then in those individual little white tubs, we've got like Christmas, rayon. I hate rayon. I know everyone in the UK seems to love rayon, or you guys call it viscose. It's so slippery. I don't have enough pens. But there's like swim, and there's a couple of rows of plain colors. I'm mostly allergic to it, but occasionally I need it. So I think that also helps, because then if I want to sew with a particular type of fabric, which is mostly cotton, I'm going to be honest, I just know where I need to go, or I can just pull it out, and rifle through it if I want to.
Yeah, that's amazing. Right, so we've got a question about patterns from Mary that says, if you had to pick, so if you have to pick one fabric and one pattern to best represent you, what would you choose? That's quite a tricky one.
Okay. Actually, honestly, this Fiber Mood Judy is, I think, probably an excellent example because it's got my puff sleeves, but I like to say that my biceps are just too powerful for most of the clothes that I make. But there's nothing restricting. It's got a nice loose cuff band. I hate elastic around my arms. It's got this really lovely detail as well around the waist. So it doesn't just have that straight gather, it just kind of curves down. So there's a little bit of interest. And then there's some buttons at the back just for fun. But mostly I can eat like as many breakfasts as I want in this because it's super comfortable. So I think this would be an incredibly relevant pattern to sort of say this represents me. If you're talking about fabric substrates, like I'm a straight up cotton woven. It's stable, it behaves, it comes out exactly as I want it to, and it is as vibrant as you can get. I think the colors just come up so beautifully on it. If we were talking about a particular fabric, I'd have to say anything by Whimsy Kaleidoscope, honestly. And I've got some of her fabric to show you. Her fabrics essentially just encapsulate how I feel about color and that sort of joyful, almost childish approach to life.
Amazing. I think that's a really good answer for quite a tricky question. And like with the wovens, the cottons as well, they're really good for that style of pattern that you chose with the big sleeves. And yeah, I agree that like a cuff is much more comfy than having an elastic that sort of, I don't know, it can dig in, or then it's a bit too loose. It's just never quite
Yeah.
right. So yeah, I definitely behind you with that, and eating multiple breakfast also sounds like a great idea. So shall we chat about how you got into sewing and like what drew you to it?
Yeah. I feel like it's a slightly like it's, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a pretty straightforward story. I am your cliched COVID sewist. But at the same time, I feel like it was inevitable. And I have a picture that I want to show you. And this is my nan.
Oh, wow.
And she was incredible. She made this outfit. And in fact, she turned up to a grandparents' day at my primary school wearing this, right? And I have never been more excited or more proud of someone because she just strode in this amazing me made outfit, right? But so my nan was an incredible sewer. My mum can sew. She won't sew. Sorry, mum. I'm just outing you to everybody. She doesn't like getting stuck with the needles. And my sister actually sews a lot. She sews mostly with net. But my nephew, her son, also can sew. He sews little bags, right? So it was sort of inevitable. And in year 8, I'm old enough that we had home economics classes at school, and I made this god awful pair of forest green knit, like jersey shorts with no pockets. So, of course, I never wore them and they were awful. And then of course I never thought about it. And then about 15 years ago, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And so I signed up to a 6-week short course at the local TAFE, which is like the technical kind of college. And it was like sew your own pajamas. And so I bought some ridiculous flannelette fabric and I bought a sewing machine because I was like, this is going to work. Anyway, it didn't work, obviously. I made the pajama bottoms. They were awful. I'd never finished that because it was like a collared button up, think the closet core Carolyn, which I've made twice and still makes my heart beat really fast when I come to the collar bit. Anyway, so I gave my sewing machine to my sister, who's then her son, who used to use my sewing machine. And I packed and moved and unpacked and moved that unfinished pajama top, which I never wore, through 3 moves, because I was like, I will finish it. I'll totally finish it. I never finished it. It's dead. Anyway, so that was it. And then COVID hit, and I had someone ask me once what I used to do before I sewed, because anyone who follows me knows that I kind of live and breathe this, right? Like I'm always sewing, I'm always making. And they asked me what I used to do, and I said, oh, I used to shop, obviously. And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like that was my hobby. I used to I've always loved clothes. Again, sorry, mum. I got lost when I was 2. We were in a department store with my mum and my nan, and they lost me and couldn't find me for ages. And I was just sitting with the dresses, just in a world of my own and just playing. And so I have always loved clothes. I have always loved fashion. I would change my outfit 3 times a day. I still do sometimes. But without the access to the shopping centers, because of course COVID lockdowns, and then as I said before, I was finding myself drawn to more and more colorful clothing, and that narrows down your shops. And so I said to my husband, I said, oh, I think I'm going to do this, right? I think I'm going to do it. So I rang my sister and said, sorry, I'm taking my machine back. Whoops. But it took me, I'm going to say, 3 or 4 months of procrastination, of reading. I read books, I read blog posts, I bought fabric. I had not put a needle into thread in 15 years. And I was like, I'm totally going to nail this. And so I'd bought fabric, I'd bought patterns before I knew anything about the sizing of patterns. So I'd bought like things that were never going to work, but I'd accumulated this stuff. And then we were living in Canberra, which is Australia's capital. Then we moved to regional New South Wales, and I said, okay, well, I've got nothing to do now. I may as well sew. And so I started with, you get those panels, and they are like they have the pieces that you can cut out and you can make something from it. So it was a Christmas stocking, right? I thought the rule of you always pre-wash your fabric was applicable to all things. It's not. Don't pre-wash those panel pieces because it moves them about a little bit. Anyway, it was the most ridiculously awkwardly shaped stocking. And I was really disappointed. But then I thought, you know what? What else could go wrong? So I picked up a new look dress pattern, which on the surface seemed really easy, except it had little cap sleeves and bias binding and thread loops and all this sort of stuff. And I had to literally Google everything that was not how do you sew a straight line. So I had to Google what bias binding actually was. And it was really badly made, right? But I was in love. I fell so hard. I wore it out to breakfast the next day. I told the lady I'd made it. And I look back now and I think, oh God, of course you could tell I'd made it. It looked ridiculous. But that was 2.5 years ago. It was the 9th of January, 2022. And I don't think I've gone more than 48 hours really without doing something sewing related since then.
Yeah, I was really
And I realized
that you've only been sewing for a couple of years. Like you make so much now, and like I don't know, I just feel like, oh, you must have been around forever. But no, like 2 years, you've just really fallen hard and really got into it.
I have, and I realized that was a very long-winded explanation of how I turned into a sewist. Sorry, I get really excited. But I think the thing that I've done in the past 2.5 years is barely sew the same thing twice. And what that forces me to do is learn constantly. And so I probably have wasted hours and hours trying to figure out things because a particular pattern company will have a particular way of doing things. But I feel like it's forced me to level up my sewing more quickly than if I'd sort of settled on a couple of patterns and just sort of replicated them, which would probably actually have been easier. Like a few more smock dresses in my wardrobe would definitely not go astray. But I just keep going, oh, but I'll just try this other pattern. And I really do feel like it's made me advance in my sewing skills more quickly.
Yeah, that's a really good tip for people that are like getting into sewing. And I think as well, you don't, like, before I was sewing, I didn't appreciate how much you could learn from a pattern, like especially the indie patterns where the instructions are written out really well, and some of them will even tell you like why you should do a certain thing,
Yeah.
like, you know, like with stay stitching, and it's like this will stop the neckline stretching out, and you're like, oh, okay, like, you know, that makes sense, rather than just being like, yeah, I don't see the point of this, I'm skipping it. Like, to actually, you know, read the instructions and follow them, even if you're like, I'm not sure about this method. I think it's a really good way to like learn new skills and maybe like find your preferences as well.
Absolutely. I also, and I know there's a lot less love for the big five patterns in the sewing community. But what I sew a lot with them. I have a whole trolley full somewhere over there. The thing that I really like about them is they were designed when obviously women had those inherent skills already. Like they grew up learning how to sew. And so there's lots of assumed knowledge, which is often perceived to be a bad thing. What I like about it is once you become fluent in Big Four language, it's a lot easier, but it forces me to think. Like there's nothing better at times of just getting your hand held and having instructions that just very clearly, you know, across 30 different pages show you exactly what you need to do. And there are days when I do absolutely just want that. But again, I think that's helped me increase my sewing knowledge or just awareness of what I can do, because I have to figure out the steps that they're kind of skipping because they're like, yeah, but we assume you know this. So it's a bit of a love-hate relationship at times. But I do think it's really helped. And I know that people often have problems with getting them to fit, which is why I often pick, you know, the big smock dresses with just lots of ruffles and stuff. Because there's really, except for a straight shoulder adjustment, there's very little fitting that you need to do. But I think it's really useful just to tackle them sometimes, to really just, yeah.
And like build your confidence as well, to be like, actually, this knowledge they assume I have, I do actually have it now. So
Absolutely.
and it opens a lot more like options as well, like more designs, because they've got
Oh,
so many patterns in their collection.
so many. And I've all of a sudden discovered vintage style patterns, and I'm becoming quite a collector of those. And they do ruffles very well. Like I'm got some in the mail today, and they're just ruffles aplenty. But yeah, I think don't be afraid of them. And I know there's a lot of negative talk about them in the sewing community, but honestly, you know, when they have sales on, they can be incredibly affordable. And so it's a really low risk way, you know, if you manage to pick up some fabric on clearance or something, it's a really low risk way of pushing yourself to realize that you know more than you do.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. I'm assuming Kerry must be your mum from the chat. We were
Hi,
talking
mom.
which your stash earlier. She was saying you can create separate tubs for the people you sew for, like your mum. And
Thank
then I did.
you.
This was a response, I think, to when you were saying that your mum doesn't really sew. She said, "Because you can sew for me." So do you make
Yes.
things for your mum and for other people as well as for yourself?
Ah, I'm a very selfish sewer. Um, but I love my mum, obviously. So she's one of the few people that I will make for, despite her very exacting specifications. Yes, mum, I'm looking at you. But I will sew for her. My poor husband waited 18 months to get a pair of shorts. And he's got a few more queued up that he'll probably have to wait another 18 months for. Um, I made my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law a couple of things, and my dad got a shirt that I made him, and bless him, he wears it every second day. And the only reason he doesn't wear it every day is it has to be washed on the alternate day. So he also has a little tub with some beautiful shirting fabrics that I have found for him. But there's a lot of pressure, I think, when you sew for other people. When you sew for your family, it doesn't matter quite so much, right? If they don't love it, you're like, yeah, but you're my family, so you have to love me. But sewing for other people, there's this desire to want to do something really, really well, and a fear that if you get it wrong, I don't know, that you got it wrong, right?
I
But
think when you sew for yourself, you know, like your tolerance levels of like what you'll accept. So like if you've got a seam that crosses over, if it's like 2 millimeters out, you're like, you know what, you can't see this from 3 feet away. It's the 3 foot rule. I'm gonna move on. Whereas if you sew it for someone else, I don't know, you just kind of have this picture in your head that they're going to be looking at all the bits.
yes.
Oh dear, but actually that's sort of not what happens. But you get that sort of pressure to feel like you've got to do it absolutely perfectly, which I think can be quite stressful.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think also I have such a long list of things I want to make for myself that it's really hard to bump those things out of my queue and put someone else's in. But I promised my mum a raincoat for her birthday, and her birthday was in December, and by the time I make it, it'll be the next birthday. So you've also got to be prepared to wait a really long time if I
You're gonna,
tell you I'm going to make you something.
you're gonna have to request something that you really want, and you're gonna want that long term as well. Because if you don't want it in a year, then you're not gonna want it by the time it's made.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think that links in really well with Mary's question about how do you choose from your stash hub what's next up?
Do you know, I don't know, because so the great thing about Stash Hub is I can plan projects anywhere and anytime, right? So I talked about, coming down and rifling through my tubs. I don't actually rifle through my tubs. I rifle through my digital stash, and it can be really, really hard for me to figure out what I want to sew next because I want to sew them all. So I have about 70 fabrics or 70 projects. I have way more than 70 fabrics. I have like 70 projects planned. I think I have about 15 cut out. And I think it's just honestly the whim of the day. If I come down and like I finally just about finished, which I'm going this way, that way. I finally just finished the fixing the shoulders on that strawberry top, which I pulled out a couple of weeks ago, going, I'm just, you know what? I feel like a really quick and easy sew that's already cut. That'll take me no time. And of course, it's still sitting there. I never sew seasonally appropriate things. I just finished a flannelette dress, and now the weather is beautiful again. So yeah, I have a lot of fun planning my projects, but translating that into what's in my queue, it can be really tricky.
I feel like you just said I never so seasonally appropriate, like right in time, like at the exact same second that your mum says it's very wet here. I need my raincoat, please. Please move me up in the queue.
It's
Oh,
really great fabric too. There's an amazing Australian designer who's based on the Gold Coast, and I've been lucky to meet her a few times, Ali Whitaker, and I snagged this gorgeous piece of, it was a remnant piece. I'm going to make her the I Am Jacques raincoat pattern. I've bought the pattern, I've printed it out. Okay, all right, do you know what? We're here, everyone's here. I will make it before your next birthday, Mum.
everyone's witnessed now. You're going to have to do
I
it.
know. I've got to stop that. Should have just said, "Oh, I don't know who that woman is. Never met her before in my
Very much what
life."
she's doing. She knows how to get what she wants. And
Yes,
let's
she does.
say hi to Christine and Jennifer, who are joining us also from Australia. So welcome to the chat. Right, shall we have a peek at some of your fabrics that you've brought to show us?
Yes. I brought my husband down here earlier today to help me pack because I realized I can't show you everything because we'd be here for hours. So I've picked out some of my favorites. And the first one I've got, and I've got them all wrapped around my comic book board. So I hope you appreciate that I'm unrolling these and I will have to roll them up again later. But the first one I want to show you guys is a Deb McNaughton fabric, because that's, as I said before, what really opened my eyes to just the incredible designs. And it's from a company called Hello Friend Fabrics. And I love the ladies that run Hello Friends. They have some incredible female Australian designers. But this is called, and this one's actually even got a project assigned to it, but this is called Love Potion. And it's a cotton woven because that's what I love. But it is bright, it is cheerful. There's no real right or wrong way, I don't think. Oh yes, there is. This is the right way. So this is Love Potion. And I love it. To me, it reflects exactly what I like in fabrics. It's bright, it's colorful, it's kind of childish. And it's just really fun. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be a dress. And I say that because I don't quite remember what I've got attached to it, but 90% of the things I make are dresses. So that's this one.
Have a good like selection of patterns that are really good for showing off large scale prints, because I think that can be quite difficult if you get an amazing print and then you're like, oh, I don't know now because I don't want to cut it up and
exactly
ruin the effect.
So one of the things I really love about the way Australian, a lot of the online Australian fabric stores work is, so the way Hello Friends work is they have 3 pattern scales. So you can go like ditzy, regular, and jumbo. So I could have gotten that in a much smaller print, but I was like, go big or go home. So
the impact.
exactly. Now this one I adore, and it's by Whimsy Kaleidoscope. And as I said, she is my absolute favorite designer. But I don't know what to do with this, because mostly I consider Whimsy fabrics to just be too good. Like they're too precious to sew, and so I never quite, and it has to be right. Like it has to be perfect, and it has to use every square scrap of fabric that I have. But so this one is called Her Cute Things design, and I have 3 meters. So honestly, please like help a girl out, drop some ideas in the comments. If it's a coordinating set, if it's a dress. I did think top and skirt, but you can just see there's just it's just full of really cute things. It's there's a really cool high top shoe. There is a cassette tape. There's some sunglasses. This mirroring on the screen is making it really hard for me to figure out where I'm going. But anyway, and this is definitely a color palette that I am really drawn to. There's a lot of pink, obviously, but it's the inclusion of the blues and the yellows and the purples that I really like. So unfold it all. But yes, so that is one of my favorites. And in fact, most of my Whimsy fabrics have no plans, because I also just think they're beautiful as they are. And I don't want to get it wrong.
Mary says maybe a jumpsuit.
Oh, that's interesting, because I could have sleeves maybe, and then and that would use a lot of, okay, that's a great idea. I will definitely give that some consideration. Now this is
for the jumpsuit as well. So
sorry,
Christine's jumpsuit as well. So clearly that's a popular idea for that fabric.
Do you know, I really can see that working. Now this is very iconically Australian. This is another Australian designer by the name of Tegan Ashley, and I have this in 3 colorways. I've made a dress out of the lilac, and I still have the pink in my stash. This is canvas. One of my favorite fabrics is canvas, because it works so well when you want that structure or just that little bit of extra weight in your clothes. Except now I live in Queensland and I don't want any extra weight in my clothes because it's so hot. But this is fairy bread, and it is fun. And I'm planning a pair of Yanta overalls, which is a pattern that I actually do know that I will make multiple times because they are the perfect relaxed overall fit, because they have these little, just these tiny little darts at the front side, and it just gives it this shaping that I think some overall patterns really kind of miss. But so I have this, and I actually have an original artwork by Tegan Ashley ready to be hung upstairs that is on a gingham backdrop, a whole bunch of fairy bread. So you can't go to an Australian birthday party as a kid, without having a whole bunch of fairy bread. So
For
that's
our
that.
non-Australian viewers, what's the fairy bread? Is that like
Oh,
white bread and sprinkles, or is there more
yeah.
to it?
Yeah, it's literally, and it has to be white bread, butter or margarine, and then hundreds and thousands. So not the long sprinkles, the circle sprinkles. And then yeah, you cut it in a triangle shape and you stick a big old pile of them on a plate, and kids go nuts. Maybe not today. I don't know if kids' tastes are a little more elevated than ours were when we were growing up. But yeah, I used to love fairy bread.
Sounds great fun.
Now, the next piece of fabric I have is some swim fabric by Ali Whitaker. And this is her, I think it's called Parrot Party. Now, I'm not going to drown in the ocean wearing these, because you will see me from a mile away, because this is incredible. It's a recycled swim fabric. I desperately want to make my own swimwear, and I tried a pattern recently, didn't go so well. I need to regroup and start again, because I have fabrics like this sitting in my stash just waiting to be. And it turns out swimwear doesn't use a lot of fabric, and I have like a lot of this. So I can probably make myself like a rash vest and, I don't know, some leggings just about. So I really need to get my act together and make myself some swim.
There's loads of
Um,
really good swim patterns that have recently come out, I think. Like there's one from Friday
yes.
Company that's got like sleeves and a zip. I don't
Yeah,
remember
the
what it's called.
Gia surf suit, I think it is. And Helen's Closet just released one, and I've had someone tell me the Megan Nielsen Cottesloe is also a really good one. Now this one is by an Australian design group called Dupes Designs, and they make the most incredible fabric designs, and their jersey. I know a lot of people are sometimes hesitant to sew with knit fabrics, and if you get a really crappy quality knit, it's a pain to sew. But I've always found Dupes jerseys to just be delightful to sew, and they feel so nice to wear. So this is a darker color than I normally go for. I don't tend to go towards the darker ones, but this is their Spells fabric. And it's just got so many fun there's a little goose head, and there's a leopard, and there's just a whole bunch of really fun stuff. And Dupes I have a really big collection of Dupes fabrics, but they're the most random selection of sizes, because I would always pick them up when they were having a remnant sale. So I'd just be like, add to cart, add to cart, add to cart. I will think about what I need to do with them later. So I'll have like 70 centimeter pieces or 1.4 meter pieces, but you make it work. But yeah, so that is Dupes.
So what do you
Um,
tend to make with your jerseys? Are you like t-shirts, or do you like a jersey dress? Have you got go-to patterns for jersey?
I just finished making a really incredible dress that was a vintage simplicity pattern made by or designed by a knitwear company. And it was gorgeous because it had ruffles around the neck and around the button placket. My problem is finding really interesting patterns to use with knit. Like I find that there's great t-shirt patterns. The core t-shirt pattern is a really great one. I've got the Jessie Tee by True Bias, which is also a free pattern that I need to try. But I tend to find what I do with knit fabrics is I'll often take a woven pattern and just make it as a knit. Like one of the ones that's designed for either knit or woven is the Style Arc Hope dress. And that is really beautiful in a knit. So I do struggle when it comes to finding patterns to sew with knit that aren't just sort of your basic pajama shorts or a t-shirt. But yeah, I'm building a collection of patterns.
Nice, exciting. Yeah, that reminds me, I've got a really cool vintage pattern that's got like a sort of ruffle around here. But that's for knit, so I really need to try that. It's got a matching like bucket hat as well.
Oh,
I think it's from like the 70s, but it's so cool. I love it.
I feel like that one, you definitely need to make that one. I have a couple of additional fabrics if you want to.
Yeah.
I didn't know how much time to take up showing my fabrics. I mean, this is literally what you're all here for, right?
Therefore, yeah, if anyone's got questions, pop them in the chat and then we'll ask them to Lisa as well.
So this is one of do you know what? I say this all the time, right? This is my favorite fabric, or this is my favorite pattern. And I'm genuinely I'm genuine when I say that. I just have a lot of love and a lot of favorites. But this one is called Strawberry Legs by a Melbourne designer, Molly Molly. Shelley does some of the most incredible fabric. So this on the surface just looks like some strawberries. But then when you look a little bit closer, which way am I going? I can't figure it out. There we go. I've got some legs. You've got little strawberries and legs on the fabrics. This is just a beautiful cotton woven. I actually have 4 meters of this because I bought 2 meters, and then she happened to put up in her stories that she just found an extra couple of meters, and I was like, hi, can I have that please? But yeah, so again, I have no idea what to make with this, whether I make a couple of items or not, but it's really fun. And I think Shelley makes some of the most really unique pattern designs. And I love that she's so true to her own aesthetic. And she makes the greatest labels, honestly. This is one of my favorites. I put it in my husband's shoe.
It's definitely like a black pocket one. So I was like, oh, a label. Oh, okay.
But she also has a matching strawberry legs label. So I
I
thought that
love the
was so
strawberry
cute.
legs. It's so funny. It's so silly.
Well, because you just don't, you're just like, oh, that's really, like just some strawberries. It would go well for So Fruity, obviously. Maybe I'll have to hold it over to next year. And actually, I have another fruit fabric. So this is on canvas. It's only 1.8 meters, so I don't know if I have enough for a pair of overalls, but possibly a pinafore. But this is Bananas by another Australian designer who's based on the Sunshine Coast, So To Grow. And she was clearing out the last of her fabric, and I said, oh, hi, how you doing? I'll take that one off your hands, thank you. So this is, if anyone is actually genuinely wondering how I've accumulated so much fabric in the past 2.5 years, it's being in the right place at the right time for really good sales. Like that is literally the be all and end all of how I've achieved this. Is everything is just about always on sale. So the last one I'll show you is some really, and I know exactly what I want to do with these. I don't know if you're following along. At the beginning of the year, I was going to make all of my shorts patterns. I'm still working my way through those. And then the weather got a bit cooler, so I decided it was pants season. And I love a good high waist, wide leg pair of pants. So these lemurs that I picked up at Spotlight, which is like Joann's in the US. I don't know if you guys have an equivalent in the UK other than Minerva, but I don't think you guys have physical stores.
Yeah, Minerva online, but I guess the closest thing is probably like Hobbycraft for a sort of big box kind of craft store, but they do all crafts, not just sewing. But yeah,
well, Spotlight does the same thing. They're not just sewing, but they have really increased the range of Australian designers that they are working with. And this one is by an Australian designer called Tara Reid. And I just thought those lemurs were kind of absurd. And it's on a beautiful cotton drill. So these will make a really perfect pair of wide leg pants. If anyone saw my stories the other day, I made a pair of drama llama, as I call them, pants. She had some llama fabric, and it was a 1940s vintage reproduction pattern, which actually worked out really nicely. But I'm not sure which wide leg pant these will be, but they're
That's going to
definitely
be
going to
so
be a pair of
fun.
pants. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I love how you name your projects as well, like Drama Llama. And I feel like there was I don't know, I can't remember them now, but when I see your project names, I'm just like, yes. You
Well,
captured some vibes of the fabrics and the look of it with the name as well.
yeah, I definitely look, I like to play to an audience, obviously, but it's fun. I could just be like wearable toile of X. Um, I don't know. I to
You just
me,
have a good time. It's awesome to see. It's really fun
yeah,
to
it's
join in
it's
with.
well, and to me, they take on a bit of a life of their own, right? Like, and I'm always talking. I'll be like, oh, she's finished. She's beautiful. That like it's like they become their own person. And so I feel like it would be an injustice to them if they didn't have, a fun project name. But it does take me time to think of them. I'm not gonna lie. I do spend a bit of time going, okay, what witty phrase can I come up with for this one?
The unexpected parts of the sewing hobby that you didn't realize you'd be spending time on.
Yeah.
Right, let me
Yeah.
check the chat. So Mary says, can you give a shout out to 3 Instagram creators that you follow? So not pattern companies, but people that you really enjoy following.
Oh, okay. I mean, obviously, I would have to say You Can Sew, which is a friend of mine, because I mean, she makes some really fun fabrics and fun clothes, but she's such an engaging sewist. She is so willing to share her journey. Like at the moment, she's just made a pair of pants and she's using that new Prim, the Vario tool. And she's so generous with her knowledge of, you know, what you can do and how you can achieve things. And of course, that's how I found about the comic book boards. Another sewist that I find really, really fun to watch is Katie Makes a Dress. So she's based on the Sunshine Coast, and I think she just has the most incredible sense of her own personal style. And I really love to see what she makes, because it's always just a little bit different. But she just owns it really so proudly, I think is how do I would describe it. And the other one that I have only recently started following, her account is Juno Loves Thread, and she's based in the UK. I feel like you're nodding because you recognize
Yeah.
the handle. But she just, again, she uses really bright, colorful fabrics, but it'll be like this beautiful slip dress paired with a pair of trainers. And I just want to be that cool, right? Like I just want to have that effortless kind of style. But I think what I love about Kath is, as I said, she's so generous and with her knowledge. But what I love about Katie and Juno Loves Thread is that they are just so seemingly comfortable and confident in how they style their makes. And I want to have that degree of confidence, and I think I'm getting there. I mean, you can't wear bright clothes and not be prepared for a few side eyes or looks. And I'm becoming more confident in just sort of embracing that. But I want to be that kind of person who genuinely just doesn't care what other people think of what I'm wearing or how I've worn it, because I'm wearing this for me. I wear this because it makes me happy. I love it if it makes somebody else happy, but at the end of the day, it's when I look in the mirror and and I smile. That is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I was just making a note of those accounts and I'll link them up in the description afterwards if anyone wants to check them out. But yeah, that's really good that you got those off the top of your head and that you've got like reasons as well that you like following them. I think it's really important to sort of not just to think about the sewing and the process, but also like, you know, you're making these things to wear and to get confident in your, you know, because you really can like really personalize your style when you sew, and then to get confident in that is a really important part of the process that I think often you don't think about so much, because you know, in all the books and the patterns you've got the tips for how to make the thing, but then afterwards you've then got to think about how does this fit into my wardrobe and how am I going to wear it and all that. So it's quite a different sort of part of the process.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think what's really interesting is I'm really starting to lean into being just who I want to be. And that is bright. And that is, you know, that is a lot of pattern. And it's been really, it's been so lovely when I get messages from people telling me that my makes have inspired them to try adding a little bit more color into their own wardrobes. And I just think that's such a compliment, because color makes you happy. Well, it makes me happy. And I think we're so fearful of standing out in what we perceive to be the wrong ways that we tend to dull our light. And I'm tired of dulling my light. And I want to take up space and I want to take up room, and I want to be seen. And I think if my willingness to sometimes look like a unicorn threw up on me helps people to feel confident in just adding a little bit more color into their wardrobes, and I think that's amazing. Like I couldn't think of anything more rewarding than that outcome.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. That's a great message. It'd be great to like wrap up on that, but we do have a few minutes left, so we'll keep going. And if anyone's got any more questions or comments about the chat, do drop them in. Even if you just want to say thanks to Lisa, like, because I've really enjoyed this. I'm sure loads of people have also enjoyed watching it. But just quickly back to your stash. Christine says, how many fabrics do you think you've got in your stash? We can.
Right, because I'm pretty sure. Well, I know. My husband's watching. He does know. I'm incapable of hiding this stuff from him. I see my app is in my phone, which is what I'm talking on. I'm fairly certain that I'm now under 500 pieces of fabric, which just seems ridiculous. I have a kilometer of fabric, which is why, if anyone follows me, I've been on a winter whittle, which is a ban that I self-imposed to not buy any fabric for the winter months. And the end of August cannot come soon enough. But I had a couple of people ask me what was the purpose of the ban, and it wasn't a financial thing. It wasn't necessarily a space thing, although I don't actually have any more space. It was about acknowledging that I have so many stunningly gorgeous fabrics already just sitting here waiting to be used. And every time I bought a new piece of fabric, the chances of this being made just got lower and lower. And so I wanted to stop buying fabrics for a short period of time so that I could force myself to actually overcome my fears and cut the good fabric. Like I was just going, that's too good. It's too good to purchase, so or too good to cut. So I'll buy more. So now I have to use this fabric because there is no more coming for a while at least.
So have you got fabrics that you've got your eye on for when you finish your ban?
Look, I love everything, right? So the answer is both yes and no. I don't have anything I'm specifically eyeing off, mostly also because Whimsy's Christmas collection just pre-orders closed last night and I'm devastated that I missed out. There was some very fun fabric that Kath and I saw when she was up a couple of weeks ago at East Coast Fabrics, and it was things that are pink and randomly it was bacon and macarons and watermelon and lipstick all on this piece of fabric that on the 1st of September, I'm not going to lie, I am probably going to go in my car and go to East Coast Fabrics and buy that fabric.
You've got to have a little reward for yourself for making it through the winter with no purchasing.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't made it all the way through yet. We are 55 days and counting. I feel like it would be really disappointing to fail at the last hurdle. So I'm going to do what I can to get all the way through the winter months.
You got this. You can push through, and then you can treat yourself with your things that are pink fabric. Sounds great.
That's the plan.
Have you got anything that you want to say or tell us about before we wrap up this chat?
Look, I mean, I think I've just talked everyone's ears off, and if anyone is actually still online, thank you so much for listening to me. But look, honestly, I think sewing is incredible. But what I think is more incredible is the community, and that's what I come back to time and again. I love sitting at my machine and I love sewing, but it's the connections that I've made, not just on Instagram. Now, when I started sewing, I was in regional New South Wales. No one sewed. We had one spotlight. I became friends with a couple of the women that worked there, mostly because I was just there all the time. But I was talking to people, and I was talking to people around the world, and it gave me a sense of belonging that I was really searching for, and I was really lonely at the time, and then I just met these amazing people. And then when we moved to Queensland, the Brisbane sewing community is incredible, and they are engaged and they are warm and they are actively doing things, and they embrace you with open arms. And I have been so incredibly lucky to meet multiple people and to consider them my friends now. And so what I would say to anybody is a, just thank you if you follow me and you engage with me already. But if you're looking, if you're a little uncertain about reaching out to people, just do it. Send someone a message. I've not come across anyone who isn't willing to have a conversation, because we're all passionate about this hobby. We all love it, and we do it for various reasons. I do it because it makes me feel good. It's a mental health release. It's a whole bunch of things. But I will talk to anybody about sewing, and feeling welcomed into this space has been so incredibly important to me over the last couple of years. So that's my words of wisdom that I'd leave you with.
Amazing. Yeah, it's such a brilliant community. Everyone's so wholesome, and I think it is really good to be involved with. Right. Oh, very quickly, Mary just says, what's your favorite Stash Hub feature? So I feel like I have to ask that.
Yeah. The new share function, the new sharing function. It because I find it so embarrassing when I'm like, oh, it's been in my stash for 400 days. But I think I love it, because then I can kind of be like, I'm not just sharing sort of the same stuff that's in my post. It's like, this is how much fabric I use, this is how much time I spent on it. Look, obviously we're talking about Stash Hub. I pay for my Stash Hub subscription, but I love it, and I think it's the best investment that a sewist can make, because it keeps everything under control. And honestly, I cannot tell you how many times I couldn't go to sleep and I just scroll and go, oh, I think that would go really nicely with that. I'm just going to queue that one up as a project. So it means I can sort of sew on the go, right? And I love that. And it also has stopped me from buying multiple patterns, because I've done that multiple times.
I've been posting about that like this week, and so many people have bought it. Like, the one that killed me the most was someone accidentally bought the same pattern 3 times, and then they didn't even like it. I was like, oh, how did this happen? But I just thought that was too funny.
Yeah, no, I saw that.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, like Margaret says, thank you for being so open and genuine, and yeah, sharing your stash with us. Like, it's so gorgeous. I just can't, like, every time I see there's a new post from you, I'm genuinely so excited. So I'm like, oh, I've got to see this. This is going to be amazing. But yeah, I think I'll just finish on this comment from your mum that says Lisa Nam will be so incredibly proud.
Aww.
And yeah, I just think your nan just sounds so iconic with her like Met Gala outfit to the Parents' Day. It's so amazing. Oh, Christine says, I'm new to Stash Hub and loving it so far. Thank you so much for trying out the app, Christine, and thanks for joining us today. But yeah, that's our hour. So thank you so much for talking to us, Lisa. Yeah, just so glad that you could join us and tell us all about your stash and your sewing journey. It's been really, really inspiring. You've had some great nuggets of wisdom in there. And yeah, there is a link to your Instagram profile already in the description of this video. And if anyone missed like the start or anything, it's going to be available to watch on catch up like straight afterwards. So yeah, and I'm going to link up those other profiles that you mentioned in the description as well. If anyone needs more sewing inspiration, which I mean, you can never have enough, can you?
No, no. Well, thank you so much for having me on, and for inviting me to talk about my stash, which I clearly am very happy to do. But yeah, I love this space, and I am really excited to be part of it. So thank you so much for having me on to talk more about something that I can clearly talk about until the cows come home.
Yeah, it's amazing to see you're so passionate about it. And like, as we all are, it's just so good to have these chats. Anyway, thank you so much. And hopefully see some of you guys online next week for the next Stash Chats. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.